Today's episode's all about scholarships, where to find them, how to apply, how to win, and a great scholarship resource as well.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today's episode, we've got a great interview with Ayden Berkey. She is the owner and operator of Access Scholarships, a great website that has a lot of good information on pursuing scholarships, as well as a search database where you can actually look up scholarships and find scholarships that are a good fit for you. She also even has office hours where if you have questions, you can actually reach out to her and learn a little bit more. And then stay tuned because in Brad Recommends, we talk a little bit about my own scholarship resource called the Scholarship Guide for Busy Parents. And once you've learned a little bit from Ayden here, I recommend that you go on and dive into the Scholarship Guide for Busy Parents because that will add additional scholarship information on top of what we learned here today. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. All right, today we're sitting down with Ayden Berkey. She's the co-founder of Access Scholarships. Welcome, Ayden.
Thank you. Hi, Brad.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit more about Access Scholarships and what it is and why parents would care?
Yeah, definitely. So to kind of give you an overview, Access Scholarships is a scholarship search engine, and it's also a resource platform that can be used by both students and parents to learn more about various aspects of financial aid, of everything that goes into scholarships, whether it be how to search for them, how to apply for them, everything in between, and also just providing the actual scholarships that students and parents can go out there and search for. And yeah, it's really just meant to be an all-encompassing, free to use resource that families can utilize to learn about, like I said, all different aspects of financial aid, but it can also be incredibly helpful for families and, specifically students to use during their college years as they navigate certain aspects of, extracurricular activities and leadership and internships, studying and all sorts of things like that.
Right. Okay. So you guys provide a platform to help people find scholarships. So one of the articles I ran across pretty quickly was an article that was speaking to pursuing scholarships as a junior. I mean, you had a pretty long list of scholarships and other things. So can you tell us a little bit more about the scholarship timeline that I guess parents and students, if they're kind of new to this, when should they be working on it and what should they be doing when?
Yes, definitely. So, and I'm super glad that you pointed out that blog post because I actually just updated it this morning. And so usually I think that personally the best time for families to really get started with the scholarship process is during that junior year of high school. There are certainly lots of scholarship opportunities out there for high school juniors. I believe I have listed at least 35 of them in that one blog post. But the great thing about, starting out in the process as a junior in high school is that there are lots of scholarship opportunities out there for you. But I feel like personally, the realm of opportunities really starts to open up as once you become a senior. So by students and their parents kind of starting to get, into the process as a junior, it gives you plenty of time to really do all your research, learn about scholarships, what they are, where you can find them, how to best be a competitive applicant in the process so that by the time you start applying for scholarships, whether that's during your junior year or as a senior, you are, pretty set up for success. You're organized and pretty much ready to tackle any scholarship that you want to apply for.
Right. So as an example, I had a family, and this would be 5, 6, 7 years ago now, but they did 41 scholarship applications and they won 7. That was a $39,000, when you added it all up.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I tell this story is, when you do 39 scholarship applications, that's a lot of work. That isn't something that you knock out on a Sunday or two. That's a
Yeah.
Many, many Sundays, and they worked hard, starting in the junior year. Mom and dad participated. I think that's the other challenge that families have, is if your idea of getting scholarships as mom and dad is to just assign it to your student and expect it to be done, I think you're asking for trouble, because I think most students don't really understand how to pursue scholarships. And if you just say, well, it's your job to go get scholarships, most students, not intentionally, but they're going to, they have busy lives. They're pursuing prom and AP this and finals and testing and all the other stuff around college and ending up high school. And the concept of chasing scholarships, I think, is a foreign thing, and they put it off, or when they do work on it, they're not very effective, so they get discouraged. So I think parents need to be involved and, set some time to help your student. And, so there is possibility of success, but what I see a lot is parents completely run out of time as well, because they're not really saying, well, we, thinking about scholarships till maybe rolling into the senior year. And then, they've got applications and everything else, and they just don't have the time to put that on the pile.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that actually goes, everything that you're saying about the importance of parents really being involved in any way that they can in terms of helping their kids, be prepared to apply for scholarships. I think that goes hand in hand with the importance of just having those conversations regarding, financial aid and paying for college as a whole as early as you possibly can. So maybe that means like even freshman or sophomore year, kind of like having parents sit down with their students and say, college is a few years away, but these next few years will go very quickly. So, kind of having those conversations around financial aid and introducing the topic of scholarships early on so that students can be prepared and, really set themselves up for success. And parents definitely play a key role in that journey for sure.
Right. Now, who do you see actually signing up for Access scholarships? Is it, and again, I know there's also kids in, it's never too late for scholarships. Theoretically, if you're a junior in college, you could still work on scholarships for your senior year. But as far as high school age kids, do you see a lot of sophomores and juniors? Or is it mostly seniors? And how does that work for the typical high school family?
Definitely. So I think the majority of the high school students that I, see interacting with the platform, reaching out to me through social media and, signing up for my office hour sessions, those students usually are either high school juniors or seniors. I will have, the occasional sophomore reaching out to me asking about which scholarships am I eligible for? Am I even eligible to apply for scholarships? The answer is yes. There definitely are scholarships out there for high school students of all years, but they definitely do tend to trend more towards those upperclassmen. And in terms of, I guess, who kind of utilizes the platform overall, it definitely is, skewed more towards students. However, each month of the year, I host some sort of virtual webinar or event. They can range from topics related to college admissions, to test prep, to financial aid and scholarships, of course. And those are definitely the, I guess, aspects of the platform where I see the highest number of parents really participating and kind of just wanting to learn more about the college admissions process, more about, how to be a competitive scholarship applicant and all fun stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I talk to parents as well, is, kind of the junior year is the time to lay down your strategy around testing, your visits, school research, and then scholarships is also on that list of, well, what is your plan for scholarships? Because if you start searching in your junior year and you run across the scholarship that says you have to be a senior to apply, well, most scholarships happen every year. So you just, you write that one down and put it in your reminder system and you apply for it the next year.
Yeah.
But again, I think most families need to learn the landscape of how do scholarships work and that type of thing so that they can build a plan that makes sense. And if you're starting at square one, you need to maybe do a little research. I noticed on your website as well that you've got a number of articles about the process.
Yeah. So I guess like the importance of, I think starting as a high school junior, or the importance of parents really incorporating students into the scholarship process as a junior. as opposed to, kind of sitting down at the beginning of your senior year and really trying to balance and juggle the scholarship process with college admissions and doing tours and, finishing up any test prep if that's relevant for the student. I think senior year definitely has a lot going on for the student and for the parents, just in terms of really navigating everything that comes with trying to figure out the college applications and what comes next. So, if parents can really introduce their students to the scholarship landscape and kind of get everything related to it, pretty ironed out and feeling familiar going to the senior year, then that's definitely an optimal situation.
Right. So now if families want to take advantage of your platform, what does it cost, and a little more about how does it work?
Definitely. So the Access Scholarships platform, the website, our search engine, all of the resources on the website are 100% free to use by students, families, parents. Pretty much anyone that wants to log on can freely access any of the information that I have put out there. And the reason why I did that was because I always think of it as, a pretty paradoxical situation, right? Like there are, thousands and thousands and thousands of families out there that are struggling to figure out how they're going to pay for college. And, I wanted Access Scholarships to be a platform that is truly just a helpful resource for those families that are trying to figure out how they're going to make those ends meet. So it did seem a little bit like paradoxical, right? To, charge families a fee of any kind to sign up to access information about scholarships. So that was one thing that was super important to me, making the platform free for anyone who wants to find that information. They can easily find it and navigate through all of our resource pages, all of our scholarships. And I also do offer free office hours for students, which parents, of course, are more than happy to sit in on as well. Those office hours take place every Friday. So students can sign up to chat with me about scholarships for, a half an hour period of time on a Friday, and they can easily sign up for those office hours on my main student resources page on the Access Scholarships website.
Right. Okay. So you'll actually jump on a Zoom call of some sort and work with families. And then you have multiple people at the same time. So if it's your turn to ask questions, is it private or is it more just kind of whoever's on there asks questions and everybody gets to hear the answers?
Yeah. So at the moment, it's definitely more geared towards one-on-one. So for example, a student might reach out to me on Instagram, or they might comment on one of my TikToks and say like, I don't know where to start with scholarships. I need help. So usually from there, I will say, okay, great. Like, I'd love to help you out. Here are a few, initial blog posts and resources that I suggest checking out. And, if you still have questions after that, or let's say you're working on an essay for a scholarship and you just want some help kind of narrowing down your topics, or, some basic editing and things like that, then feel free to sign up for my office hours, and you and I can sit down over Google Meet or Zoom and, chat for that period of time, and we'll see how I can help. So they're definitely more geared towards one-on-one at the moment.
Okay. So I guess for the scholarship process, there's kind of 3 steps. Well, there's 2 steps for sure, and you really want the 3rd step as well. But so that, there's the find the scholarship, apply to the scholarship, win the scholarship. And
right.
There's no point in doing the first 2 steps if you don't really have a chance of winning. So can you tell me a little bit? I've noticed on your website you had some strategies around figuring out which ones make sense to apply to, or how does the process work in that regard of, should I spend my time filling this one out or that one out, or skip both of these and go on and find a better one?
Right. So the main piece of advice that I have for students when it comes to, because the reality is that there are, thousands and thousands of scholarships out there. And as a student, you likely don't have the time to apply for thousands and thousands of scholarships. So you have to kind of learn how to be selective and be picky in terms of the ones that you do choose to spend your time on, right? So with that, I would say that the main piece of advice that I tell students is to really try and find the scholarships that are as specific or unique to your profile as possible. So before a student even sits down to apply for any scholarships, like let's say a student is completely new to the process, one thing that I always suggest is to either open up a Word document or even just sit down with a pen and a pad of paper and start writing down or bulleting a list of things that you feel make up who you are, right? So what state do you live in? What's your GPA? What's your intended area of study? What extracurricular activities are you involved in? What are your passions outside of academics? And then there's all these other random things. For example, there are scholarships out there for twins. There are scholarships out there for people who are super tall or left-handed or, various other quirky aspects of your makeup as a person. So I always encourage students to create that initial list of, everything that you feel makes up who you are. And then it ultimately will make it easier to search for scholarships because let's say you're a STEM major. So maybe you're an engineering student, right? It's probably a lot more helpful to search for scholarships for women in STEM as opposed to just scholarships for STEM students, right? So anything that you can do to kind of make it so that you're searching for scholarships that are as specific to your profile as possible will likely mean that the competition is, slightly less because you're not in an application pool with, thousands of other students. Maybe the, terms and I guess conditions to that specific scholarship make it so that less people can apply. So you're competing against fewer people. So.
Okay. So let's say I have something unique and, like I'm a redhead. That's relatively unique.
Yeah.
I've tried to find scholarships for redheads and I did find one and it was $500. It was on a website that was kind of defunct. And it essentially said, the guy that put it together, he said, I created the scholarship for redheads because I searched for one and I couldn't find it. So I decided I had to put one out there. And it looks like it was his kind of a passion project or something he was doing in his spare time, just as kind of a joke. And it looks like he got tired of it because it kind of, the last time it was awarded was 8 years ago. But the remnants of it was still out on the internet. So I guess if we're in your platform, how does that work if we have some uniquenesses that we're trying to put in? Do you have a way is it free form or is there a list that we check boxes, or how does the search parameters work within your program?
Yeah, definitely. So when students go onto our scholarship search, they can, enter in their major, their area or their intended area of study, their GPA, any, extracurriculars that they're involved in, whether that be a sport or some sort of leadership or anything like that. And at the moment, our platform doesn't quite get as specific as, you can't just search like, oh, I'm a redhead or like what color is my hair, right? But
right.
once you do go through to the results page, you can use our like keyword search box to, let's say you did want to see if there were any scholarships for redheads, you could type the word redhead into the search box and, see if any corresponding scholarship does come up. So that's currently how the search engine aspect of the platform works. And I guess the other main, area of the website, which I'm trying to build out in terms of giving students and parents the opportunities to find some really great opportunities for scholarships, is the blog. So on the Access Scholarships blog, which, you already found by that post that was titled Scholarships for High School Juniors, I am, pretty much on a weekly basis trying to put out new content that I think will be relevant for students. So I have scholarship posts for college students, scholarships for graduate students, scholarships for engineering students, and the list goes on and on and on. So once I feel like I have, put together a decent list of scholarships that pertain to a specific area of students, then I'll go ahead and put that into a blog post because I just think it's a super helpful and like easy way for students to search for scholarships based on various aspects of who they are, right?
Right. So then some of the scholars, so stuff that might be in your blog post as an example, would that automatically be in the search as well? Or is that additional scholarships beyond what's on your platform?
So all of the scholarships that are featured in any blog post that I put together are already somewhere in the Access Scholarships search engine. The reason why I also will, curate these blog posts, like 20 scholarships for this type of student, 10 scholarships for this type of student, is because I've discovered through chatting with students since I've started this journey that using the search engine aspect of the platform can sometimes be overwhelming. And, every student is different in terms of how they prefer to, take in new information and get started with that process. So I thought that making these lists was just a good, I guess, side partner to, some students maybe prefer to just search directly through the engine. Others may be preferential towards scrolling through those blog posts to find scholarships that way. So just a different way of getting in the information about the scholarships that are out there.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about applying for scholarships then. Once we found the scholarships we're interested in applying for, what typically are we going to have to do in order to actually apply?
Right, which is a great question. Very important aspect of the process for sure. So every scholarship is unique and different in terms of, the application requirements that it may have for students who, are wanting to apply. Generally, the majority of scholarships out there will ask for, I guess, the most popular or most common application requirements that students will come across as they apply for scholarships are uploading a transcript. So, so that the scholarship committee can see your GPA, they can see which classes you've taken, things like that. So they'll ask for a transcript. They might ask for letters of recommendation from teachers, coaches, anyone else in your community who you've been involved with in some capacity, whether that's academic or extracurricular. They may ask for an essay or, a series of short essay submissions. Scholarships also sometimes ask for a video submission upload. So maybe a requirement will be record a 2-minute video of you responding to this question about, why you deserve X scholarship and upload it onto our platform. So those are generally some of the most common application requirements that students will likely see. As you get further into, applying for some of the more competitive scholarships, like, for example, some of those full ride scholarship opportunities, students will generally also have to, take part in interviews and other things along the way, just to further talk to the committee and really convince them of why they are deserving of that opportunity.
Right. So I guess a lot of the parents that are listening may not have chased many scholarships in their day. And if they did, they might have been actually filling out scholarship applications with a typewriter to kind of put this into context. So are you saying that the application process happens right on your site, or do you just is it linked out to other places where you go? And I'm assuming most of this stuff now you're doing it online in some form, but are you filling out forms, or are you typing it into a website, or is it like filling out the FAFSA where you put a bunch of data into a website somewhere and then send it to many places?
Right. So, for example, if a student finds a scholarship on the Access Scholarships platform that they want to apply for, and the majority of the opportunities that we have featured in the database are by private organizations. So, for example, like a Taco Bell or a Microsoft, right? So let's say a student wants to apply for one of Microsoft's scholarships. They would click on the Apply Now button that is featured on that specific scholarship page on Access Scholarships, and it would then direct them to the actual scholarship page on Microsoft's website. So from there, it definitely varies depending on, some organizations will offer a wide variety of scholarships, and students only need to fill out one application to then be considered for multiple opportunities. For other scholarships, it's, a student needs to fill out one individual application for each scholarship that they would like to apply for. And that's generally, I think, the more common of the two, but there are definitely organizations out there. For example, I know that the Society of Women Engineers offers, I think probably at least 100 scholarships. And for students to be eligible, for students to apply, they simply fill out one application on the SWE website, and then they are considered for every scholarship that they're deemed eligible for.
Okay. So it wouldn't be unusual to get redirected to the website that actually operates the scholarship. So we shouldn't be surprised to find ourselves on a different website that's then asking for information.
Yep, correct. And so that is generally, the most common way that these applications occur. So a student will find a scholarship on Access Scholarships. they'll click the apply now button and it will take them directly to that specific organization's scholarship application page so that the students can learn more and, decide whether or not they want to apply from there.
Right. All right. So now we've done the first two steps. We've found scholarships we were interested in. We figured out how to apply. How do we actually win? Any strategies or ideas around being more successful and actually winning the scholarship?
Definitely. And these it's actually funny because when I talk about, tips for optimal success in terms of winning scholarships, I feel like sometimes students are like, oh no, like you're spilling all the secrets, but this is all information that is very readily available on the Access Scholarships website. I have a blog post on strategies for winning scholarships. And so just as an FYI, this is not certainly not private information. And I want all students and parents to be aware of these tips when they're going into the scholarship process. The first tip that I have is to really put a lot of emphasis on those extra submissions that a scholarship may have. So, for example, if you're applying for a scholarship and they want to see your transcript, they want to see a letter of recommendation, and they want to see maybe 2 essays, right? So definitely, your essays are going to be the portion of the application where you really have the opportunity to show the committee who you are as a person, why you're unique, and what you bring to the table that maybe other applicants don't. And a lot of times that's not information that you can easily convey through just uploading your transcript, right? Like, while that information does give a lot of insight into the rigor of the classes that you've taken, and maybe even a little bit of how strong of a student you are, the essays and those extra submission areas are the place where you can really stand out as an applicant. And so that's why I, like to put a lot of emphasis on helping students craft really strong and unique and memorable essays, because ultimately I think that is, one of the places that gets, the most emphasis in terms of determining whether a student is going to be moving on in terms of that application process, or whether they will be selected, or if they won't be selected.
Right. Okay. So as we're kind of wrapping things up here, if people want to learn more about your website and, get in contact with you, can you share out however it is that you're best contacted?
Definitely. So anyone, students, parents, can easily, head over to accessscholarships.com to get started with your scholarship search, to browse through. I have tons of pages of resources. Starting in, January of 2022, we will be revamping up with our next virtual event. So anyone can go there to sign up for that event once it is in the works of being planned. And then anyone can also follow Access Scholarships on Instagram. I use the platform quite frequently to post about scholarship opportunities, to post tips about scholarships and all fun stuff like that. And, families can also reach me directly by email at ayden@accessscholarships.com to get any other questions answered and, chat more.
All right. Well, thank you very much for all the great information, and we'll stay in touch, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Yep. Thanks so much, Brad, for having me.
All right, that was a great interview. I recommend everybody go check out Access Scholarships. It's a great website. Again, it's got some great information as far as the database, and she's always putting out great information. You can also follow her on social. But again, if you think scholarships are in your future, I think that's a great place for your students and parents to follow along. As always, if all the information is available in our show notes, that would be at tamingthehigh-cost-of-college.com/142, as this is episode 142. If you enjoy these podcasts, please share them with your school counselor and your friends. Most people don't know we exist. Most people don't know that they can get help for college. So point them in the right direction and give them a helping hand. And of course, you can also give us a review. We appreciate any reviews we can get as well. All right, stick around for Brad Recommends, where we talk about the scholarship guide for busy parents, your next step as far as pursuing scholarships.
The latest tips, tricks, and tools you can use today. This is Brad Recommends on Taming the High Cost of College.
Today, I'm recommending the Scholarship Guide for Busy Parents. Now, that's a free resource we have on our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/scholarships. We'll get you there. But you can sign up for our free resource that helps families understand the 3 different types of scholarships. So we just listened to a lot of information about private scholarships or outside scholarships. Again, scholarships that come from locations other than the college themselves, corporations and charities and that type of thing. But in addition to what we've learned about here, you really need to understand you can also get scholarships from the colleges you're attending. And those scholarships can come in the form of need-based or merit-based scholarships. And sometimes some families will get both. So you need to understand those options as well, because they can make a big difference as well. And I think many families are a bit confused about the different types of scholarships. And when they hear that rumor of, well, so-and-so got a scholarship, they're not getting the whole story as far as, well, was it need-based? Was it merit-based? Did it come from a corporation or did it come from the college itself? I mean, as an example, there's many colleges out there that claim that more than 99% of their applicants will win a scholarship. So at some colleges, there's some scholarships that are just automatic. So you're not going to have to spend a lot of time pursuing the scholarships. All you need to do is apply and they'll give you a scholarship. Now, at many colleges, there's different levels of scholarship as well. Some you'll also need to apply, fill out financial aid. And then finally, at some colleges, there's some scholarships where you need to apply to the college, be accepted. And then from there, you can go on, fill out financial aid, and then finally do something extra. Fill out an additional application, an additional essay, some sort of additional work. Sometimes it's an interview. And sometimes colleges will invite some of their top prospects to pursue scholarships. So all those different types of scholarships are certainly available and out there. And the Scholarship Guide for Busy Parents will go into a little more detail, give you some examples, and help you through the process a little bit more. So I encourage you to go check out the resource. It's 4 videos. Each video is relatively short and to the point. And again, it's not going to give you everything you need to know, but it'll help get you started. And then you can decide if you need to go a little deeper into the various types of scholarships. All right, that's all we have for today. As always, show notes are available at our website, and we appreciate any sort of reviews. If you need help directly, you can certainly reach out to us at our website as well. There's Contact Us, there's Work with Brad if you're interested in getting more information along those regards as well. I appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns 2 companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.